Hey there, first movers. We are coming to you with a very, very special series today. We've been working with Dina Sportswear on a campaign called Suited for Legacy, where we're interviewing the OGs, the original Matildas, learning all about their stories and how they made visibility become possibility.
Today, we are sharing a conversation that absolutely inspired me, blew my brain into bits, and just expanded my heart with the amazing Sue Reed. She's a psychologist.
Yeah.
She works across all different kinds of sports. Her background is just amazing, gritty, and strong. And also, she's fun.
She is fun, isn't she? I know that we connected over one very, very important thing, one very, very important person. That is the one and only, the Queen, Madonna.
Vogue. If you can't see us right now, Yaz and I are doing some very bad voguing.
That's right. We're trying our best. There's a lot of
So-
swirling around the head, isn't there?
So with that, first movers, enjoy this conversation with the legend, Sue Reed. Since we've started on music
Yes.
and the things that kind of fizz you up, let's rewind a little bit and start us out with a little bit about what you were like as a kid.
As a kid, I think I was very joyful. Like, I think my inner self was very joyful. Like I said, very much about music. I think I made friends really easily. And I'm thinking really young, like up to 5, 6. I was very like outgoing, happy, joyful. I think then as I started sport from sort of 5 onwards, that joy was still there, but I did become very intense, serious. Like, I always wanted to bring fun to what I was doing, but I was very dedicated, disciplined, do the hard things first, do the fun later. And as that kind of went on, and people still joke now, like sometimes I would like train all day, then sneak out to a nightclub with my soccer friends, but I'd still have to like be home for training in the morning or say that I'd been to training. So they always say they remember me like going to the oval at 4 in the morning, running around the oval, pouring water on my face to go home and tell my parents I'd been at trainings. I think like I kind of have these two very opposites, like one very intense and very disciplined and very driven, but I also just like the joy in the moments. And I even with sport, I like it's a performance to me. So you do all your hard training, but then it's like showtime. You got to be there to play well, but I always thought it is about entertaining people. Whether there's 4 people there or a stadium full, like part of your job is to show up and perform for the referees or the team or whatever it is. So I think quite dichotomous in a sense, but yeah, I think the joy part and friends and connecting with people was always really important as well.
You 5 or 6 years old is really young to start and have such focus. I get it. My dad played baseball for the Dodgers, so like the family lore is I could catch a pop fly before I could walk, and I understand that determination and drive, and also like it's not the stealing of joy, but it's like you said, putting the joy off till later. When was the moment when you realized you loved sport and kind of fell in love with? I know you were just not football. You also did other sport. When did you realize you loved it?
Yeah. And it's hard, right, to know. Like, I think being good at something sometimes also helps you enjoy it. I started track and field at 5. I started soccer at 5. I played almost every sport. So Saturdays and Sundays, it was probably 10 different, like 10 games of different kinds to go to on Saturday, same on Sunday. I mean, I do remember the very first discus competition, and I was 5, and I threw like, I think most people were throwing like 4 meters at that age, and I threw like 8 meters 35, so double what everyone else threw. And I remember I loved the sense in discus you kind of spin around, and I just, again, it was a bit like dancing and spinning. And then maybe it's that being noticed by your parents, or like everyone was excited and they're like, oh my gosh, she's a champion at 5. I think so. But I think there was that combination of being in my body. I loved with track and field, like I said, the elements of kind of flow. Like you have to, everything's about rhythm. It's like
Yes.
slow to fast, technique, but then you've got to let things go and just be in the moment. And I think I just got that hint of that even at 5. And then going and playing soccer at 5 as well. It was all boys. So there were no girls. It was me and like 1,000 boys. But again, like I think just kicking the ball, rhythmical, connecting. I'd always grown up playing like from the time I was born, because my brother was older than me, always just playing sport with him in the backyard and then just getting to do that on the field. I think I loved that connection. And I was taller than all the boys and I was better than them at that age. Kind of all probably up
Yeah.
until I hit under 14s when they all start to grow. I was able to dominate them. I was able to be better.
We're good with domination.
Yeah,
We're good
we
with
like
domination.
domination here. There is no argument at all around dominating boys. And I think I always tell this to my daughters because there's nothing that makes you a better athlete as a kid than racing the boys, than competing against the boys. Anybody that you were obviously taller but is perhaps physically superior for that time, putting yourself to the test, those are all incredible skills that become life lessons for you in the future. Being competitive, I guess I really resonate with that too. Really competitive kid. My wife would say I am still a little bit like that. But what I wanted to ask, no, I don't know. Like, I just cannot help it. It's innate. It is innate. And, when you learn to win, you like to win. You need to learn to balance all of that out. But you talk, Sue, about connection to your body, rhythm. Sounds like that mental space of being able to let go, even as a slightly serious kind of kid. What did sport give you that nothing else did when you start to think about those attributes and those feelings? Can you put it in a sentence or a theme?
Yeah, and it is a really good question. And I think actually listening to lots of other women football players, actually, I think a few things. One, for many of us, I think it was an outlet in life separate to other hard spaces. Like my home life was pretty challenging in a lot of ways, even though my parents were really invested in my sport and a huge part of it. It was yeah, very intense. There was a lot of family violence, like a lot of harsh criticism. So you could pretty much step out onto the field and that was your space. And I think that was my space to shine, to be seen for something that you could do, that you had control over and influence and engagement. It's like I could be in my body and I think it gave me a real sense of agency. Like I can put in effort and make some changes to something in my life, which kind of felt like a bit of a way out. And that seemed like a pathway to me as well. It embedded this really deep connection that if you put in the hard work, you can control something in your life. And that was quite important. And while school was really good, school was good, and I love being at school as well. I probably excelled academically a bit later, but again, it's just that slightly different space to school. If you're having a bad day at school or if things were difficult, it's like, I can go into sport and be here in this space and train for hours and regenerate and come back as a different person the next day. And I think the big thing for me with sport as well is it was hours and hours and hours of basically meditation and time alone, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know if it really happened because obviously there wasn't social media then. So maybe I made it all
Gosh.
up.
Is there any evidence of anything?
And there's no evidence, but you would just like, you have your coach at times, but there are a lot of times you had to go and do your sessions.
Yeah.
And I think I used to joke that there's nothing so bad an exercise session can't help you fix.
Mhm.
And it's not because the situation's not there, but you go away, you're deep in your thoughts, you gain perspective, you come back to that situation completely differently. And I think that just happened over and over and over again. I'm in so many hours at the AIS gym just lifting weights. And as a power athlete, you lift really intensely, you sit for 3 minutes, you lift for 30 seconds, you sit for 3 minutes. So there's so much time in your head to kind of reflect and change and think about things and then come back to that situation rejuvenated. And I think it's something that kids don't get today. They don't get that mental separation. So, and I was, I was always strong, always like doing power sports, much chunkier than all the other girls at school. So whilst I got on well with everyone, there was always that like, you're different. And it's not like today where people are like, oh my gosh, sports women are amazing. It was like, Sue's bigger, Sue's different, Sue's more like a boy, Sue's stronger than the boys. And there's never a day where that wasn't pointed out. And there was probably some fun around it. Like people did like that about me at some level, but it's really hard when you're a kid and you feel different in some way every day. So then to go out and then go, "Oh, like these muscles are useful for something.
Yeah.
And I can come back and beat those boys the next day." Like you just come back with
Dominate.
reflection and awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, kindness.
Was sport
yeah.
that escapism and that lesson, though? Because, what you're saying, so many young girls are experiencing today. And as you mentioned, like, we didn't necessarily have the alumni effect and the body positivity movements in those days. And it is really challenging when you are bigger. Like, I can recall my swimming days when they wanted us to start doing weights, and my grandmother saying, "Oh, I don't want her to get those big shoulders." Like, you're dealing with all of these competing influences and narratives. Like, how did you deal with that as a kid, as a young girl?
I think you definitely had to have a sense of rebelliousness, and I think some inner self-confidence to put up with and tolerate it. And it actually, as I got, I think like you were saying, there was that real white line fever with me, competitiveness. Like my brother was 4 years older, so I was always like, and he is 6 foot something, always trying to compete to be as strong as him or as fast as him. And in everything I did, I was quite competitive. And playing with boys, it's all about, I'd have to match them. But then I did representative for netball as well. And they were always like, "Sue, can you be a little less aggressive, a little less, a little less?" And then when I hit rep in netball at about 13, they're like, "Well, you're not aggressive enough. What's wrong with you?" And
Mm.
I'm like, "You've since I was 5, you've been telling me I'm too aggressive. Now you're saying I'm not aggressive enough."
Mixed
But
messages.
it's hard. Now I work with some amazing women athletes, and they're these incredible Amazons, and I think, "Oh my gosh, like they look amazing." And they'll come into session and they'll be like, "My body's too big, I'm too strong, I'm too different, I'm too fat." And I think, "Oh my gosh, that's the same thing that I
Yeah.
was going through all the time." And I think that there did have to be a lot of steeliness. For whatever reason, I was like, "I'm gonna tolerate this." And there was that sadness, like, of just like, I'm not the same as all the other girls. And that felt difficult in primary school and high school. And then I think I don't know, I always had a bit of I guess a rebellious streak or a sense. It does change you though. I think I would win a national championships and then feel like I have to be really humble and really kind and like make myself small
Yeah.
outside of the sporting field at school to be okay, and then come back and kind of be in my body. So it was a constant
100%.
management thing. And it's still like today, like even though I don't have big traps like I used to and big muscle like I used to, I look at other people, I'm like, "Oh, I'm probably so much bigger. I'm so different." And even back then, like jeans didn't fit, things didn't fit because I had stronger legs. So it you have to get pretty strong at believing in yourself and believing in a reason of why it's worth putting up with that. And I think for me, a lot of girls at 13 dropped out at that when it hit
Mm.
that point because I
Mhm.
was like the idea of I don't want to do weights. I even remember my dad saying when I was about 15, because I started weight training when I was 7, and he was like, "Oh, I never told you how like big your glutes and your quads would get because then you might not wanted to have trained and done weightlifting." So it was like, which is just crazy.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
Yeah.
ouch. It's such a minefield to deal with all of these sorts of elements. And it's not unique only to women, but it is such a gendered issue. And I think a lot of the time, because sport, women are objectified, they're sexualized, they're not necessarily judged on their physical performance. It's all these other elements that really come into play. And so I guess in those moments, I'm going to assume that your teammates were your connection, your mirror image of many different people, the ones that accepted you for who you were. Is there a story from the Matildas era that still makes you laugh out loud when you think of your teammates?
And it was interesting. I was reflecting on this. I think back then, the national team and state teams was a very different feel. Like we probably would spend 10 months of the year with our state team players. So you'd play local league with them. Then we'd probably spend 6 months together in ACT training together for nationals before we moved into the national team. Like under 16s and under 19s national teams, I had really fun and silly experiences. But probably by the time we got into the senior team, for me, it was more serious, my time there. Like I would say more of the fun things were at state level when I was going through. And I was reflecting on this on the weekend. A lot of the people I played with are still really good friends. We would have the most insane tours. Like, so we would have talent nights every tour. So people would make up songs and like really clever songs. We would have the best team songs, but we'd get to championships and, you'd get into your bed, the base of the bed would be short sheeted. There'd be honey all through it. There'd be disgusting things in the toilet. We'd all take little mementos and someone would steal one. And I remember getting my friend's teddy bear, whatever they'd taken as their memento, and we'd hung it like from a noose outside of the window of their hotel room. Like you do crazy stuff like that. And back then too, no parents came.
Yeah.
very little adult supervision. So
Yeah.
you would just have this amazing fun. But I think like a lot of practical jokes, and many of them definitely would not be allowed now, but I think there was a lot of bonding over that. So it was music, fun, practical jokes, talent nights. For me, the team songs was a big thing as well, like coming up with your own team songs. And so probably most of my really good memories were in the state team that were the fun things. And maybe I was just more serious going into the national level. I probably became more self-conscious when I was in that space.
Were the
Mm.
team themed songs like Madonna focused, as we know you love?
Well, any that I came up with, absolutely. But actually, a lot of we'd pick like 80s and 90s songs, like a lot of the best Australian songs, and then we just change all the lyrics and then sing like the lyrics about the New South Wales team or the South Australian team. Like we'd include every player in our team, and it'd be something that would be targeted to all the other teams. So we'd be turning up singing about them as well.
Yeah.
But of course, yeah, I would pick ones that were Madonna themes.
I
But
imagine
I
there's
think
dance moves too.
yeah, but I do think there's something when you tour, so whether it's national team, state team, when you go away and it's just you and you've got all the team dynamics and that is very hard, but you
Mm.
bond in almost no other like the only other thing I can think of is like when it's the military or other things where you've got a common goal and outcome, which is, there's an enemy or there's another team. You've got a common goal to win or to an act of service, and you're interdependent on each other. Like you're
Mm.
reliant on each other. You each have your role. You've all got to be focused on the values and the outcomes of why you're there. And so those experiences, they're very foundational. They form you in some way. And I think that's why a lot of people stay friends for a long time. You might have spent 5 years together, but you're still friends 40 years
It's a
later.
unique environment, unique
Absolutely.
friendship.
Yeah, it is a
Absolutely.
very unique environment. Yeah. And it is challenging because there's a lot of hierarchy in team sports, like of
Mhm.
jostling for power and status and who's who and who wants to get selected. And you're sometimes competing against your best friend to get the same
Yeah.
position. But you've also got to be able to just have fun and spend tons of time together, which is probably what we see with the current Matildas. A lot of them are really good friends off the field as well. So, and they've obviously come through all the way. And I imagine they'll be friends for life.
Absolutely. When you think about when you were playing and, the sport being far from the spotlight of social media and all of the things that are happening today, what did it take for you at that time to keep showing up and keep showing up and keep showing up?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I really wanted an Australian tracksuit. That was it's like it's so weird. And I think because I started track and field really young, I knew about the Olympics. It was something I always wanted to do. And so I just assumed that was a pathway you could have in women's football. And so I think I had to have this sense. One, it had to be, I guess, fun. So that's where the human connection was really important. But having a sense of values and some kind of outcome in the longer term that was possible was really important. Probably the thing that always drove me is I just wanted to be the best that I could be in playing. So if that meant training harder, competing with more difficult teams or driving, 6 hours to play in a different state, I guess I just wanted to do the best that I could. And I had a very strong vision. I wanted to be able to play at the national level and to play in a World Cup or Olympics or something like that. So that drive, I think, just kept pushing me day after day after day after day. And there wasn't the accolades, we were competing for maybe they'll put us on the second last page of the back of the newspaper. Not we'd never get the back page as women's sport, but maybe not like the 10th page in or not at all. So I think that drive to kind of make it more well known I was a huge advocate of I just was like, we need to be on TV. We need
Mm.
to get eyes on the sport. Once people see the sport, many things happen. You can't you have to be much more accountable for selections. People will enjoy it if they watch it and get attached to people all the way through. And I think so I just had a vision like it's going to get better one day.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
And did you
So
think that visibility was definitely the key to that getting better as it
yeah, I just think visibility is accountability at one level, but visibility, like, yeah, I mean, we've had however many 100 years, 200 years, 300 years of men having all the money, all the attention, sometimes in other sports, I'd go and win a national championship and I'd come back and there'd be the off season of football and they'd have on the back page, like, Ricky Stewart hurt his little toe in the off season. That's the whole back page. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
This woman just won the Olympic rowing. I just won national championships. Someone else just did amazing things. And I just thought, until we get that visibility, you can't get more funding. And I think that circular argument that still happens today, it still happens in Canberra with our ACT funding. They're like, oh, we do what's economically viable when it's just not viable to give money to women's sport. And I'm like, no, no.
No.
Men have had that, which is why they've got the eyes on it. And I believe in Australia, we will watch anything, gamble on anything if we get to see it. But you've got to have continuity.
Mm.
And I, notice if you see a game or a couple of games in a season, you're not invested. You need the story, which is
That's
like,
it.
oh,
That's
my
it.
team is going terribly. I want them to do well, or my team is doing great. But that only comes through eyes on the sport. And I think everything else flows on. And I do think like coaching has to be, once you're watching, people will ask questions. Like with the Olympics, and we didn't do as well. People like, what's happening with culture? What's happening with coaching? Do we have the right team? And they are all very valid questions to ask. And that improves us no end. So yeah, I don't know. Even when I was really young, I just had a vision that it could be like that, and it would be like that one day. It probably took an extra 20 years to get there, but obviously the World Cup, I think, was very emotional for lots of past players to see that and go, "Oh my gosh, it's better than you could ever imagine for that moment in time."
But that's like the perfect illustration of what you're saying, right? The World Cup for so many people just was that catalyst, that change. I have never really known a lot about soccer, through a wife in rugby, know some of the ex-Matildas, probably people as well. But it was that moment where I went, wow, look at what's happening. Look also what's happening around me, to the people on the street talking about the games, to the fact that I was driving home on one of the semi-finals that the girls had, and there was not one car on the road on the way home, to watching my girls watch these players with stars in their eyes for the first time ever. Like, it absolutely hit me in the feels. And so a lover of sport, yes, but not even necessarily that sport. What that does for one person and therefore a community, that's the power of visibility. And we talk about this at First Movers, like we say, visibility is not vanity, it's value. And I think a lot of the time we get caught up in the vanity metrics or our egos around putting ourselves out there or our story, but actually it's the legacy it creates. It's what you were talking about then, Sue. People actually understanding and having a consistent, understanding of what's going on, the context of the game, attachment to the players. But we have to get that investment in the first place. We have to make sure that they're getting consistency.
Yeah. And I think it's a bit similar to, when TV when I was growing up was mostly UK and US. And then they brought in legislation in Australia to say you have to have a certain amount of TV coverage of Australian based shows. I think it's the same now. Our free to air TV should have a percentage of sport that is women's sport that is accessible to everyone. Because I know watching the different women's sport that I want to watch, to get through a season, I often have to have 3 different subscription services. And then you're looking for it, right? It's not being put in front of you. Like, I watch it because I'm a sport lover or a football lover or a basketball lover, but it's not like, oh, hey, this is on. I didn't know the Asian Cup was on. Hey, let's watch it.
Yeah.
And I think with the right awareness government wise, those changes could happen so quickly. And for me, the big difference between men's sport and women's sport, and not to say, you need role models in men's sport to inspire physical activity in boys, but that pathway is so clear. In women, most young women drop out at the age of 13, never to return to physical activity in any meaningful way for the next 3 to 4 decades. When we get women role models, it's not just about creating elite athletes. You flow on to young women staying through sport until 18, 19, which means we see better leadership outcomes for the rest of their life, better career for the rest of their life, better health, better mental health from that flow on effect. And I just think, like, don't invest in women's sport just because it's women's sport. It's at a community level, massive changes, lower eating disorder rates, people going, oh, that woman's really strong. I'm really strong. I'm different. Maybe I can be like her one day.
Exactly.
And we see a different style of woman to what we're normally shown. Same thing when I was going through sport. I was like, oh, if I'm not blonde and look like Lisa Curry Kenny, it doesn't matter what outcomes you get. You're not going to get sponsorship, and you're never going to get money.
Yeah.
And so again, secondary to the how good you were was, but what do you look like and what's happening? And I think that's our women athletes now just blast it out of the water. Like you have these role models that boys and girls are looking up to, and the community flow on is way more powerful
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
my view. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that alone is a reason to give more money to women's sport, like apart from
Yeah.
making better pathways. But yeah, there's a huge kind of flow on effect. And for me, that's at the prevention level then of health. Instead of
Yes.
we're waiting for
Mm.
crisis, you're saving money at the crisis end. If we could just get every young girl from 13 to 18 to engage in physical activity, be in their bodies and be fun,
Mm.
our reduction on health spending dramatically less in the longer
This is
term.
such an interesting element to the conversation, which has not been unpacked enough, in my opinion, is the preventative health outcomes. When we look at women's sport, when we look through the lens, we look at it so much about entertainment and, yeah, maybe a bit of inspiration and role modeling. But actually, from a societal level, this really needs to be front and center in those conversations. And your comments around, I guess it's advocacy and change and regulation and government choices around making sure that we have a percentage of Australian sport shown. It's really similar. I was watching a show recently and saw on Netflix has to have something like 25% of their streaming platform has to be Australian made content, or Screen Australia is pitching for that. Why could we not do the same thing when it comes to women's sport, especially when it has huge positive impacts on society at large for everybody? I think that's such a really important point. I'll have a whole nother podcast on that one. So
Same.
I
I was
think
just thinking
really,
about the idea of
Yeah.
confidence at
Let's do
scale
that.
and leadership
Yeah.
and how when women thrive, communities thrive, and looking at mental health, physical health, gut health, everything that comes from
Yes.
knowing your body and
From knowing your body and not shaming it. And I think growing up, the differences in women's sport. I remember, like, again, I was a goalkeeper, so that's very power based. I was a weightlifter, power based, track and field, a field athlete, so power based. Yet at the AIS and the ACT Academy of Sport, every 6 weeks, I had skin folds done that were expected to be the same as the track athletes. I would have coaches come up, put their hand under my shirt, just grab my tummy and go, skin
Yep.
folds are a bit big greedy. Like, what are you
Yeah.
eating in the food hall? Or I remember once I did one of the best saves, like top right corner, flew through the air, and one of my favorite coaches was watching me from behind. I'm like, he's going to be so chuffed. And he came up to me after the game and he's like, your hips are looking a bit big in those pants.
wow.
And I just got it. You're
Mate.
just like, what? And when you're like 14 or 15, you don't know what to say except
Yeah.
like, oh, nothing I do matters. So,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think so many athletes at the time I was going through ended up with eating disorders. And I think I'm very conscious about it, but I had to work really hard to be like, nope, I need to eat to fuel my body. Body is about looking after myself with my nourishment to train. But almost every day when you eat, you're like, oh, is it going to make me fat? Is it going to make me look bad? Which
Oh,
is crazy
100%.
when
The
we're
calorie counting.
we're
Yeah, in
training
those
5
calipers.
hours a day and going to school and doing all the other stuff. And
Yeah,
you're like, why is that even a thought?
yeah.
And it's funny because the rugby players used to come in, first year rugby union would come into the AIS, they would eat for a year. They would just come in and their goal was to get as big and fat as possible to then convert to muscle over the rest of their scholarship. And I'm like, they're just like, oh, I can't get enough food in. I'm just like, oh, how difficult for you.
Jeez, God.
But it made no, it just, I think these unconscious biases in society that infiltrate both into the viewing of women's sport, into how we train. One of the Hockey Roos just came out, I think, and said, same thing leading up to the Olympics. The coaches were like, oh, you're too overweight, skin folds are too high. You can only eat salad, no other carbohydrates, no bread, no pasta, no rice, no cereal before an Olympic championship. And she was training and she's like, what that does to your head is just insane. And again, this
Yeah.
infusion of societal ideas, which are bad enough, but infusing into sport. And the same then, and I think the same, that question about why don't we show women's sport? And unfortunately, I don't think men have been great role models. Some are, but they get a lot of money at a very young age. What do they do with their money? Girls, drugs, cars. Women get money and make society better. And I think, isn't it time to invest in that and have the positive flow on effect?
100%. 100%. We need more women at the top, though, that know that. And so that's not perpetuated consistently as well.
Just talking about all of this, our body shape, muscularity, shame internalized because of societal expectations. the uniforms you wore says something about culture, it says something about society and the times. What did the uniform that you wore at the time, your Matilda's uniform, what did it say to you about women in sport as you wore it? And what did you wish it said?
Yes, it probably said we were an afterthought.
Mm,
Very often we had the hand-me-downs from the men's team. So certainly in training camp, it was hand-me-downs. Sometimes in tours, it was still the second shirts that too big, didn't fit, men's cuts. When you're already thinking I'm different and you put it on and they all just cut in the wrong place. So your legs look bigger, your top looks bigger, or there's nothing for a woman's body. You just feel boxy and I know it was the 80s and 90s and it was big was the theme, but I just remember I'd always had my brother's hand-me-down, so nothing of my own, so everything was too big. Then, like I said, the tracksuit for me was something. Like, there was no thought about we're gonna get paid, we're gonna get these things. I'm like, "I want that Australian tracksuit."
mm-hmm.
And the first time I got a tracksuit, they'd ordered the wrong material, and it was fluorescent green and gold,
No.
and it was the parachute material, so we're like, "Oh, I feel so flattered in this outfit." Like, it I think
Back to
it
the 80s.
yeah. It's still and well, it was an under-19 tour where I have a photo of it still. I loved that tracksuit that just it was still big and boxy, but it fitted a bit better. They were at least brand new, and we at least got to measure ourselves, and they were made for us, so that felt really good. But I think it's that thing of going, "We're strong, we're powerful, this fits," and like I was saying before, when you feel good in your what you're wearing and in your body, you do perform better. You know, whether it's, "Oh, I've done my hair well for the game." It's part of the routine. I'm putting on my armor, I'm putting on my thing, and it fits. Then you wanna get out there and play, and it is very particular. Like, as a goalkeeper, most of the time, at least, I got to choose my shirt, so I might go and find a shirt. They're still all men's, but I could at least get the small size and fit that on a little bit better. But I'd feel like, yeah, what color do I wanna wear? What do I wanna feel like when I'm getting out there? And is really important because you're just different all the time. And if you feel then different in a boxy, yucky way, it's hard to be confident. But when you get something that's fitted and you feel great and it shows off your body, I think that posture and confidence, it is expressed in how you do things. Even now when I do workshops, I almost do the same routine as playing sport. I'm like, I wait till the last, I have a shower, put my stuff on, the makeup, hair, and then I'm like, okay, game day, I'm ready. And if my shirt doesn't feel right, clothes don't feel right, you don't feel like you're yourself in the
It
same
throws
way.
you off your game, right?
It
Absolutely.
throws you off your
Yeah.
game, yeah. And there is that, it's celebrating difference and uniqueness, right? And if we sent the men out there, and some of the men even have issues when they wear the pink shirts or wear the,
Mm.
different colors. Like if we sent them out there in, I don't know, the tightest shorts that they could move in and the biggest baggiest oversized top or something,
Yeah,
they would
totally.
not like it. Stuff has always fit them. It's always worked. And it's so I think we just expect us to put up with it. And that's definitely the message we got back then is you should be grateful. Like doesn't matter what you get, you should be grateful. So that was always a thing, but it was always secondhand and it always didn't fit properly. But you still got to be grateful for that. So, and I'm sure lots of the other people in my era and pre would also like probably all had hand-me-downs. There just wasn't money in the way there is now. So we all like if you'd had I see now the team, they get their strip for the game that's embroidered for the game
Mm.
they're stepping into. Like, how special is that? And you go into the change rooms and it's there in your, like, that gets you prepared and ready to play. Like, that feels special and feels important. So I think it is a crucial kind of tie in.
Was
What
there
I'm
ever a
hearing.
point in your playing career when you did have specific or bespoke uniforms for you?
Not really in football. I
Mm.
think because I did track and field as well. I remember we got bodysuits for javelin, where you feel self-conscious, but also you feel a bit like, oh, this is amazing. This is made for me.
Mm.
Probably no. Like I think we got issued shirts and shorts and things, but it wasn't tailored. It's
Mm.
like you can choose this, this, and this, and there's too many of the XLs, so we'll give you one of those. So I definitely wasn't quite in the era that things were tailored. I remember I got an AIS scholarship and we got like AIS scholarship with women's soccer on it. And I was like, women's soccer, not just the soccer program, but women's soccer. And it was like, even that felt special enough. Like, we don't need much, like just something. So, but yeah, it just is that acknowledgement and form fitting function. In science, we always talk about form fits function. And so when you feel good in what you're wearing and it enhances performance. But yeah, I think just getting something issued new was probably the biggest highlight we had. Being tailored, that would be a next generation thing.
It sounds like there's that whole concept of getting the hand-me-downs, but then getting something new to then having something personalized for you, like talking about women's soccer. That's that whole next step. And I guess that's where we want to start talking about what brands like Dina are doing here in terms of influencing that feeling, that sentiment, and how that intersects with women's sport, not just aesthetically, but culturally.
Yeah.
Can you share a few of your thoughts about this campaign, Suited for Legacy, and what brands like Dina are doing with this?
Yeah, and I think that idea of let's tailor it to your body for, I would say, for strong women, for in any form, but like most athletes, you go in to any store, stuff either doesn't fit your shoulders, it doesn't fit your biceps, it might fit your waist, but then it doesn't fit your legs, and then you're often going to functions and you're trying to represent your sport, but you feel a bit like awkward, or again, there's something wrong with me. So I think getting blazers like this that are stretchy and that actually it's like, it fits my shoulders, it fits my arms, like I can move. Because I think that's the other thing is often when you get off the rack stuff, I would always end up feeling like my shoulders were aching by the end of any function. And so then you're just standing there going, I just want to endure and get through this and get this off. Whereas like something like this is, purpose made with stretchy material. So you're like, "Oh, I feel like I could go do a workout and I can look good." But then you want to be present. But I think, again, it's that sense of you're being recognized and noticed and your identity matters and you're part of a broader group. Instead of always being separate from, it's like, "Huh, I am together and part of another group of women that are also strong or also have a similar shape." And yeah, I think that is the thing with sports. Certainly when you grow up, you're like, I'm different. I'm different. I'm different. I had some young kids I was speaking to and they're like, oh, my muscles were a little bit bigger. And they're like, it must have been so amazing growing up being a strong woman. And I'm just like, my gosh, like that's
Bless.
amazing. You think that, but no. And then they're like, short hair and purple hair. You must have been so cool. I'm like, could not be further from the truth. It's like, none of that is a reality. That's like having short hair was not okay. Having muscles was not okay. Not being able to fit into the normal clothes was not okay. So I think it does just make you feel like I belong. And probably more fundamentally, I'm okay. It's like validating that at that deeper level. And it's funny, I do a lot of yoga now, and the yoga community, people are like, you shouldn't get Botox, you shouldn't get your hair done, and like, shouldn't do this. And I'm like, actually, for me to take care of my appearance it's quite a radical act of self-compassion, and it is so different to how I grew up. Wasn't allowed makeup. My hair was always cut short, not in a nice way, in like oh, this is in the way, let's buzz cut your hair, wearing horrible clothes. Like, it's for me now to go, oh, I can put makeup on or I can get my hair done and I can wear nice clothes is actually saying I'm worth it. I'm fundamentally worth it in some way. And it is a radical act for me. And I'm like, in the future, if I want to get Botox, I can. If I want to, if I want to, if I want to take care of my skin, if I want to do whatever, it's like you say, it's not about fitting into vanity. It's what feels good for me. And I'm allowed to take care of that. Equally, I have no
100%.
judgment. Other people have grown up with all the makeup, all the stuff, all the things, and they don't want to do that anymore. Absolutely. It's like allowing women, like for me, feminism is we've got to embrace all of us and have choice without kind of demeaning anyone else like we're always taught with women is to make yourself a better, put someone else down. And I think that's a patriarchal thing that does not serve us well at all.
Serves the patriarchy, exactly.
Serves the patriarchy.
It's how we've learned. It's a learned experience. We now need to unlearn that experience and practice it daily so it becomes normalized.
Exactly. And building each other up. And it'd be like, you look great
Yes.
without makeup. You look great with makeup. Like whatever you like. That.
Exactly.
And also, yeah, be a good
You
person.
look great however you show up in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
I support
but
you
if it's tailored
as you.
for you, it's just better. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's good. But yeah, but it's what makes you feel confident, right? Like I think that's and I've even heard some of the current Matildas say, I think Mary Fowler did a fashion shoot and she's like, oh, like looking good on the outside is kind of nice. You can kind of feed that back
Totally.
inwards. And being, knowing you're a good person on the inside also feeds to the outside. So there's, taking care of yourself and being kind through going, this fits well. I think that's a good alignment. It's a really important alignment. And it's something that the men in sport get every day of the
Yep.
week. So it
Absolutely.
shouldn't be something unusual for us.
When it comes to that, fantastic segue. What do you think is one cultural shift that could push women's sport into the next big breakthrough? Good.
Yeah. So I think for me, one of the big things is this idea or the perception that women's sport needs to mimic men's sport in some way. I think there's always this either unconscious comparison or very often a very overt comparison. Again, often cited as a reason not to give more money or more airtime. It's not as good as the men's. It's not the same as the men's. And I think we've got to have a cultural shift. No, it's not. Men have 10 to 20 times the amount of testosterone that we have. They don't have to have babies and look after families and take care of the emotional load of society. So, like, I think that shift of going, the aim is to create something that centers around women's needs and capabilities. And in fact, it's a totally different sport and it's a totally different experience. A couple of things I've noticed as well is once you start giving women the proper training and time, like the output and change in physical capacity is phenomenal. Like when I was training in weightlifting, I would always be the strongest person in the gym. Now I go in and like every woman's deadlifting 150 kilos. And I'm like, what is with that? Like, because they're starting earlier, they've got better technique, we're understanding the biomechanics better. So the fitter, faster, stronger of women who really are getting like a hundredth of the support of men, it's going to explode in terms of physical capability, but it's different. Like we sometimes play football smarter. We do it differently. And I think people come because we connect, we have stories, we stay after games and we take the selfies, we change communities that we're in. So I think this idea of we're our own unique product that is different to other men's sports. And I don't really want to see women kind of chasing that we want to be like the men. Like I think we want to be different to better than whatever, a different experience. And I think that's what the big thing with the World Cup with the Matildas, it's how people felt when they left. When we lost the semi-final, I still need some. But then you see the England players coming over, putting their arms around our team. You wouldn't normally, you see that now in the men's because I think they've watched us do that, but they're like, we are so happy we won. And we also get how hard this is for you as a home nation.
Yeah.
Even the next day we were with all the England supporters and they were ribbing us, but then they're like, actually, we're really sad for you. So there's a friendliness and a bringing together. Whereas with men's sport, when State of Origin gets played, we know there are more violent outbursts and more home-based violence than any other day of the year. Like that's not bringing communities together. So I think we offer more, we offer something different. It doesn't have to look the same as men's sports. I would like that cultural shift. And also you give us a little bit, you give us 1% and we will improve 100%. And I think that's the big shift I would like to see.
God, there's
Love it.
it's like, I have to say it, women just do everything better. And I know that that's a bit of an outrageous thing to say,
Hashtag
but
not on me.
honestly, we're saying like, just give us the 1%, we'll do so much with it because that's our track record. So imagine what could happen if we were given equal opportunities. And I think you're right. It isn't about trying to replicate the men's game. It's about trying to take people on the journey that this is something different. And I could not agree more that one of the biggest lessons from watching women's sport is the essence of mateship and connection to each other, of a united front of caring and kindness. And, people listening might go, oh, those are really fluffy words. But actually, if you live by those values, there's so much goodness that can come from that. The last sort of section of the podcast, so we go through what we call our First Movers Framework. So it's an acronym for the word first. F stands for fueling growth. I stands for igniting courage because we're believers that courage comes before confidence, not the other way around. R is about ways that we reframe relationships. S is how we as individuals or organizations or environments shape the status quo. And T, as we've talked about a lot today, is about telling your story, the power of visibility being value, not vanity. Now, before we do a really quick and dirty one question, one liner response from you, I want to ask you, what does it being a first mover mean to you?
I mean, it's probably two things. It's one, it's having the confidence to live your own potential and what that does for you. Because I think, like I said, you have to tolerate a lot to be able to do things differently. And then I think if you can pass that confidence or role modeling on to anyone else in the community, that changes things, and that's incredibly powerful. And, I is like we were talking about before, for me, Madonna being such a rebel in the music space and going, women can be different. You can take criticism and you can still be out there. That inspired me and helped me get through difficult times. If someone goes, oh, you can look like that or be like that and do something no one's done before in this field or this area, and now I can do it, that's amazing. I think that would be the ultimate kind of compliment or the ultimate positive thing in the world. Even at a really young age, I was always like, I want to have a positive impact on the world, people in my space in some way. And that was often aligned with a sense of active service. But now going, oh, is it role modeling? Is it showing people that you can back yourself and do something different? If that inspires one person, amazing. I think and again, as women, we have to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. What an incredible answer. I mean, true believers on this side of the screen as well with Cassie and I live and die by the sword of that. Okay, quick and dirty, whatever comes to mind first up when I ask this question. So first, we're going to start with fueling growth, the F in the first mover framework. What's one belief, practice, or habit that fuels your growth today?
I think one belief is, for me, very deeply instilled, is if you put effort into certain actions, you can get better. You can improve. If you apply attention and focus, you can improve your skills at a brain level, body level, mind level. The flip side of that is recovery fuels growth. You don't get fitter, faster, stronger until you rest. And I've had to learn that the hard way. You need light and shade. You need intensity and you need softness. So both of those, and that's a constant lesson to learn, but both are crucial for continued growth, or it limits at some point.
Oh, what a great answer. Amazing. Okay, I is ignite courage. So, can you share a moment where you had to choose courage over comfort? I mean, this whole podcast has been about this, but one moment where you've had to choose courage over comfort and what it taught you.
What there's so many. I mean, I would say even when I very first started and I walked onto the field as a, 5-year-old and my parents were yelling out Sue and everyone's going, Sue's a really funny name for a boy. And then realizing that I was the only girl in like 1,000 boys in my age group in Canberra and going, yeah, I'm still going to do this. I'm still going to show up every week, even from that age. So I think, and that just would happen week after week after week. And then they'd be like, keep it off that girl. Don't do that. So I think I just had to keep showing up. And that probably started the courage over conflict. I easily could have walked away. I could have just complained to my parents and somehow got out of it. And I was like, no, I've got to push through this. So, and that's probably come up again and again and again throughout my life.
I love
Amazing.
that. When we think about reframing relationships, what relationship with yourself, your teammates, or the game did you have to reframe after you retired?
I was very injured. Like I fractured my spine, was very sick. I had a lot of immune system damage. I had to reframe things. I think that you don't always have to push 110% capacity 100% of the time. I had to learn really that slowness and stillness can get you there just in a slightly different way. So just to balance my personality out. I think then it was actually to value myself and my experience and realize I had learned a lot and I didn't get to do all the things I wanted to do in sport in the way I wanted to do them, but that experience wasn't lost. And ultimately, sometimes it sets you up for better things. The work I do now as a psychologist, really that have come from the pain of my sporting career and my ill health, actually has directed me into much more meaningful work. And I think just knowing when it feels like the end and it feels devastating, sometimes it's just the start. And that really my worst moment probably led to the beginning of a career that now I love, and I can use every single one of those experiences just in a slightly different way, and probably a much more powerful way.
I love that so much. When it comes to shaping the status quo, what's one outdated assumption in women's sport you'd love to be shaken up for good?
One of the outdated assumptions, I think, again, it's that idea that it needs to be like men's sport, but also people thinking it's boring, it's not as fast as, it's not as good as, because it's not the same as men's. For me, it's like it's different and it's amazing in a whole lot of other ways.
What
Yeah.
incredible insights. Every single one of these conversations, honestly, I feel like could go for another hour on so many different subtopics. I guess that's our job to try and figure out how we can keep that conversation going. But thank you so much, Sue, for all of your nuggets of gold, the passion as well, and the vulnerability and authenticity that you shared. Just listening to you makes me feel a bit less alone and what my experiences were as an athlete and as a girl and a teenager and feeling really like you don't fit in. There's so much that you've shared today that like is just such a hard yes moment from me. And I'm sure the many people that you speak to of all ages through your work, your workshops, your keynotes, your business really just benefit so much from that. So thank you again for
Thank
everything that
you.
you've shared.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
If you have enjoyed this episode as part of the Suited for Legacy campaign, what do folks need to do, Yaz?
Oh, they need to just hit that beautiful little bell, that subscribe button, because if you liked this sort of content, and I have to tell you, there is more of this to come, you want to make sure that it is delivered directly to you. We don't ask much, but if you like these episodes, if you're a person that wants to be a first mover, if you believe in visibility becoming possibility for people like you, your friends, your family, and community, hit that subscribe button. You won't regret it.
Ring our bell.
Ring that
Ring our
bell.
bell.